Joining us on the phone is Paul Cameron. He's a psychologist and sex researcher. He says it would be a bad idea to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell because a study indicates gay and lesbian soldiers are more likely to rape or sexually assault fellow soldiers. Mr. Cameron, please tell me about the study you did.
Well, first we took official DOD, Department of Defense, statistics on sexual assault for 2007 and 2008.
Right.
2009 still isn't out here yet. And then we derived our own estimate and then used the Williams Institute estimate of how many gays and lesbians are in the armed forces. Then it's just a matter of calculating the odds ratios, and it turns out that gays are 4 to 7 times more apt to be recorded as having sexually assaulted, raped a fellow serviceman than a serviceman was apt to rape a servicewoman.
And how do you know who is IDing them as gay?
Somebody who engages in homosexuality is a kind of a synonym for gay. That's the way the Centers for Disease Control does it in his surveillance report on HIV, and I think that's descriptive. That's about the best way to do it.
So if I understand correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't want to misquote your study, you are assuming every same-sex incident of molestation was conducted by a gay individual. And hold on.
Yeah.
And at the same time, every opposite-sex molestation was conducted by a heterosexual individual. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's the assumption. And, of course, where it might break down is as you know, a number of gays like women, too. And so some of those rapes may have been by gays, but that would just make the ratio even worse. So,
well, you know, I did quite a bit of research in preparing for this interview with you because this is a topic that I find pretty interesting, and we differ greatly. My analysis and my sources say that there is actually no indication that when it comes to molestation, that is, when it comes to sexual acts with young children, or with or in these cases when we're talking about forced sexual incidents, there's no indication that it actually is a sexual thing, that it is a violent thing, and that it's actually wrong to say same-sex molestation means that the attacker is gay. It just seems to be flat out false.
Well, I don't know what your sources are, but if you'll look, for instance, at the research on pedophilia or the research on child molestation, you will find many, many clinical reports of people who do this. You'll look at, for instance, the Barbie report, in which they looked at men who molested boys and were caught and were imprisoned. 86% of them said they were gay or bisexual. So, shucks. I suppose there's always some rare instance where some guy gets tanked up and thinks a boy's a girl or who knows what. But
you know, I have to say, to me, we see so many, and I know that in some of the studies that your organization, the Family Research Institute, has done over time, the sample sizes are pretty darn small. I mean, in some cases, you're making assumptions based on a subsample made up of 17 people, and when that's the case, 1 or 2 people just making stuff up is going to completely throw your numbers off, is it not?
Oh, you're correct. And that's true. Unfortunately, you're talking about our estimates regarding homosexual parents. Actually, until just recently, 17 was quite a large number for that kind of research. Now, there are a few studies out there in which the numbers are like in the low 100, almost 100 or over 100. But still, we don't know very much about it. And
but even 100 is statistically insignificant, is it not?
Well, it is, unless you keep getting the same results. For instance, if you look at the past, when Kinsey did his research, I and everybody else criticized him. This isn't random. This isn't anything like representative. Well, his data is pretty well held up, not as to the numbers of people who engage in homosexuality. That was false. But in terms of what homosexuals do, the kinds of acts that they engage in, what they prefer, blah, 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 all that has stayed pretty much the same down through the years.
Do you personally think that homosexuals are bad people, or that they're evil, or that they are not the way that God wants them to be?
Well, I think that those who acquire a homosexual habit get changed.
How do they acquire those habits, though? They choose to have those? They say, I'd like to acquire some habits.
Almost never.
Okay.
Sometimes they're seduced. Sometimes it's children. Sometimes it appeals to them. If a person is, let's say, and I've had this in my clinical practice, with people whose families are wealthy. Many wealthy people's children go into drugs or homosexuality or heterosexual promiscuity.
Hold on a second. So what you're saying, you're comparing choosing to take a life of drugs to choosing to take a life of homosexuality? Is that the comparison that you're making?
I think it is a pretty good comparison. It's not identical. There are differences. One's sexual, one is, getting out of the real world.
Well, one is
look, an awful lot of people into homosexuality are into drugs and vice versa. For instance, right now, about 7-8% of gays registered as HIV positive got that way because, at least in part, they shot drugs. At least we know they shoot drugs. That's a very, very high proportion compared to people in general.
Let me ask about this, your practice, as you mentioned. Why did the American Psychological Association drop you from their membership? And I know you say, and I'm expecting you to say, you actually resigned before they dropped you. That, to me, in my research, that's not clear. Either way, we can agree they really don't want to be associated with you in any way. Why would that be?
Well, we can't agree on the last part, because they've invited me 3 times to rejoin. I think I don't know why. Maybe they want my money. Whatever. It's subject to dispute. And
which part?
Interestingly, if you'll look, I think it's on our website, we had a thesis, a dissertation, that cited this as a fact. And we contacted the university, in this case Capella, and they said, oh, my goodness, now we looked at the facts, we retract it. You weren't dropped or expelled from the American Psychological Association. I don't know. Look, I disagree with the APA, the American Psychiatric and Psychological Association, in regard to homosexuality.
I'll say.
They think they're right. I think I'm right, obviously. The issue is, who has the data? Look at this data from, for instance, Randy Schultz. Randy Schultz, acknowledged as one of the best gay historians, he records and exults in the fact that gays have taken over a restroom in the center of the Pentagon and use it, he claims, regularly during lunch break for sex.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't been to the Pentagon, don't know, but that he would claim this, and I assume he's being honest. Think about people who are so taken with a particular kind of addiction that they can't stay on the job and do something that here and there in the Pentagon, the big place, a lot of folk, I'm sure there are guys having sex with secretaries in the closets and whatever.
Right.
But no bathroom has been taken over. None of this has ever been publicized. And you'll notice Randy Schultz even has Corridor 6 where you can go and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that's still going on.
Yeah, I don't know either. Listen,
but I do know this, that all across, I've talked to a number of people in the military recently, and they say things are getting worse and worse because those who are homosexually inclined feel they're going to win this one, and they're going to be able to have sex when they want it, maybe even with whom they want it, in the military.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, we're not going to agree on this. What I see is that you've conjured up a ballpark estimate of the percentage of gays in the military. You're making the assumption that all same-sex sexual assault is done by homosexuals. You found a slightly higher proportion are by people you assume are gay, and even though the numbers are incredibly small samples, you assume homosexuals are more prone to sexual assault. So listen, to me it seems like bizarre math set to serve your specific agenda. But I'll tell you, let me give you some personal experience. When gay marriage was legalized in Massachusetts, we had the anti-gay crowd and the God hates fags people from Kansas saying, the world is going to fall apart. Here we were the first to legalize gay marriage. Everything's fine. I get to work out okay, the roads are fine, businesses are running, people are going to school. everything's absolutely fine. And there's no reason to think it won't be exactly the same in the U.S. as it was in the U.K. when they allowed openly gay soldiers to serve in the military. Nothing happened. Literally nothing happened.
Well, I'll tell you this. First, the sun is going to come up tomorrow as best we know.
That's right.
No matter what we do, you can go out and kill 50 people, and it'll still come up. But if it's the wrong 50 people, if some of those people were going to invent the next big thing like the Internet, and you kill them, life is going to change. And I would argue that homosexual activity is so compelling for those who enjoy it that...
In the same way that sexual activity is compelling for those that enjoy it on a heterosexual level.
No, it's more than that. For instance, think of AIDS. Everybody knows how not to get AIDS. That is, if you stay away from rectal sex, your chances of getting HIV infection are almost zip. Obviously, you got to stay away from shooting drugs, too. Do those two things. Maybe here and there you'll get a bad bit of blood. Maybe here and there you'll run into someone, but you're not going to get it.
Well, what about it? What about everybody?
Let me finish.
Yeah.
We've known this now for about at least 15 years, for sure, certain sure.
Okay.
And we have ongoing, according to the CDC, somewhere between 20 and 30,000 new gays getting HIV infected the same old way, rectal sex. And, man, I'll tell you, no matter whether I enjoyed it or not, if one kind of sex with a woman would mean that I could get a deadly disease like this, I'd stop it. And I think most people can. But apparently, we got something here so compulsive, so compelling, I guess so entertaining.
Well, it's interesting. I've never heard that homosexual sex is somehow more interesting and captivating than heterosexual sex. We have very limited time left. We've already gone over. You don't subscribe to the slippery slope school of thought that if we legalize gay marriage, we're opening the door to people marrying animals, do you? I know I hear a lot of people suggesting that.
I think that's improbable. I think to multiple marriage, probably. But what's more important is demographically, the big unspoken problem in our society, one that I can't get the Republicans to pay attention to nor the Democrats, is that while the United States is at 2.1 children per woman, we're still demographically okay. The rest of the West is collapsing, and we should not be in any way encouraging people not to live up to their demographic duty. Get married, have kids, have at least 2 or 3 or 4 kids. And that, anything that doesn't do that runs afoul of the Roman law. You know, under the empire's law, you could not inherit property unless you got married and had kids. That was a sensible law.
No, well, you know, we can point back to when slavery was legal. Just because something is an old law doesn't mean that it's worth following. I'll tell you, we're out of time. We've been speaking with Paul Cameron. I think the only thing we'll agree on is that we've just talked on the radio for about 12 minutes. Beyond that, I can't think of anything else that I agree with you on. But I thank you for calling in today.
Hey, you bet.
Take care. Okay, we'll take a break, Louis. We'll need a little time to recover from some of those ideas.